Hey guys, today what we're going to talk about is why we pulled our son Jacob out of public school and how, honestly, probably a year ago, this whole move from New York to Tennessee wasn't even on our radar, and how God actually put this into place this whole time. So today what I'm going to do is walk through why we decided to pull Jacob out of public school and to ultimately have Teresa homeschool him. When we moved down here from New York, Jacob was in school from 8:40 in the morning to about 3:40 in the afternoon. And then he would come home and he would end up having probably an hour roughly of homework. And just to give a little context, he's only in second grade and he's 7 at this time. So it was a lot for him, and honestly for me and Teresa. Teresa would bring him home, and like I said, he would take an hour to do the homework, and there'd be a lot of meltdowns, screaming, and I'm at work until I would get home around 4:30 or so, and I would come home to a lot of the meltdowns and stress and just not good family rhythms for us. And it was having a big toll on us as a family team. So I can see how God was implementing all of this throughout our life over this past year, because I had applied for a job down here in Tennessee from New York, and I accepted the job, and after 2 weeks we moved down here. And it happened very quickly. We got Jacob into school, and we were just kind of going about the rhythms of life and trying to figure out how it would work with Teresa being a personal trainer and me being a marketer. Before, I was working from home, and Teresa was in the process of going through and getting certified and working at our local Y in New York with clients. But after we moved down here, I am working in an office 5 days a week, so I'm not home anymore, and I drive about 30 minutes to get to work and home. And so Teresa was going through, and she was going to a rec center, but didn't have a lot of clients, so the income wasn't really there what she was making previously when we were in New York. So the whole point of this being said is that homeschooling kind of came up out of nowhere. Teresa and I actually decided we were going to go out to get a coffee at our local coffee shop here in Tennessee called 1819, and we brought Jake up to a child care center called Need a Break. And what ended up happening was we brought him there. We went out for coffee. We were just talking. We were planning on like what we could do. Teresa actually came to me and said, "What do we do about Jacob, and how can we best help him?" And she came up with the idea of an IEP for him to kind of do stuff to help him more in school. And God had been laying on my heart for something else that just didn't feel right to me. I kind of felt like we were trying to fit Jacob into a mold that he's not really best suited for. So what ended up happening is, to kind of give a little backstory on this, Jacob has ADHD as well. So he's a bright kid and excels in a lot of things. So a lot of the times he would come home with homework that would be extra work or extra math homework that he didn't do because he was bored and just talking in school. So I don't know if it's something that anyone else can relate to. But when we were at 1819 talking, I said to Teresa, "I know you trust me," because the whole nother story on this is we've worked through a lot in our relationship, and God has redeemed us, and I'll get into that in a future video when we can talk about that. But I said, "Teresa, you trust me, right?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "God has been leaning on my heart to have us homeschool Jacob." It's much more common down here than in New York where we lived before. We were in the Western Finger Lakes area. So it's just something that a lot of people at my job do as well with their kids. So it's much more common down here. So the big thing was what if we tried homeschooling? What do we have to lose? It was actually spring break, so it was March of this year. And we decided, let's just keep him out. And the crazy thing is, I think it was a Wednesday that we had this conversation. And Teresa said, I hadn't even thought of that before. And kind of looking back and thinking about it, God had been laying on our hearts this whole time, maybe because of the fact that Teresa didn't have a lot of clients at that time. It was a blessing from God to say, this is the right next step for your family team. So that next Thursday, Teresa had, she went to church and with a women's group and mentioned that what had been laid on our hearts. And it turned out that one of the ladies actually knows someone that runs a thing called Classical Conversations here in Spring Hill. And that next Friday was actually an open house for this homeschool. So God orchestrated this whole thing, and it's just kind of amazing to think of what he's done through our lives with this whole trip. Or sorry, not this whole trip, this whole move from New York to Tennessee. And it's just been such a great feeling to be able to go through and get closer to the Lord and really lean in and listen, because he's been making waves in our life. Like I had mentioned already, a year ago, I hadn't even applied at this job. And August of 2025, we moved down here. And it's just been such a blessing for our family to be around a whole bunch of other believers and to be able to pave the way for what Jacob is going to see in his life and grow in the faith and with his relationship with Jesus. So I'm grateful for all of that. Now jumping into what we've been doing ever since that calling. We ended up, like I said, we kept Jacob out of school. We reached out to this school and let him know that we wasn't going to be coming back. And it's surprising down here in Tennessee that it's so easy to pull your child out of school. And because I said it's so common, we went through a form, filled it out, and Teresa is now his primary teacher, which is how God designed it to be, a family team. So recently we've been just going through and unschooling Jacob, and honestly Teresa and me too, because we're so used to the rhythms. The crazy thing is, if you think about it, like maybe your child, or just in general for Jacob, our son, he's only 7. So like he has the rest of his life to work. And the crazy thing to me is that because he's only 7 years old, he has so much stress in his life because of a 7-hour school day plus an hour of homework every night. So we would be in battles all the time, talking or going through with him, and that's not how God had designed this to be. So it's only been a couple months now, and like I said, we're in this unschooling phase where we're all kind of growing and learning more about each other and just kind of doing things that God is wanting us to do with Jacob, and be his role model and teach him normal life skills that maybe he wouldn't be learning in school. And the crazy thing too is that he is quite advanced, like I said, and he is able to learn at such a faster rate because he's able to watch videos on his iPad. He's able to do things with Teresa. He's able to go places with Teresa. And those are the types of things that he's not able to do in a class of 20 to 30 kids. And this way, he's able to learn a lot and do things much quicker because of the fact that it's just him. And we're able to really pour into him and help him work through things that maybe he didn't know before. So we're coming into summer now, and in the fall, he'll actually start at Classical Conversations here in Spring Hill. And we're really looking forward to it, because another thing is that we want a community too. So like these videos in general, to really grow a community of other believers that maybe are homeschooling their kids, and just wanting to know others that are out there that are doing it too. Just because the way of the world for the last 100 or so years has been going one way, Jesus said to follow the narrow road. So we're doing that. We're kind of going upstream against what other people are doing, and we're seeing a lot of the fruits of it now. And I'm grateful for it, because faith was never a big part of my life up until Teresa and I met about 15 or actually more years ago now. We're actually celebrating our 12th anniversary, wedding anniversary, on May 23rd, so that's exciting. And just to see what God has done in our life, especially over the last couple years, is amazing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where this whole homeschooling journey goes. One last thing that I do want to mention is, I've kind of said it a couple times, is a family team. I went to a conference this past October, and a man named Jefferson Bethke talked about how to become a family on mission. So that's what we're trying to do. So it's really focusing on what gifts God has given us as a family unit to work together and really nurture those, and grow together as a family team. So as you can tell, our channel name is Manly's on Mission. So we're on a mission to grow more in what Jesus is wanting for us. And we're really buckling down and listening and seeing where things go. So a cool thing is that, like I said, is because of this community here, I can share how our family's doing, what our family's doing. Teresa and Jacob are also going to be on future videos too. So we're really trying to lean in and see how we can grow this and create a community around this. So if it is something you're interested in, of course, like and subscribe this, because our plan is to just be real, share the struggles we're all going through, because we're all going through something. So if that sounds like something you want, definitely like and subscribe this, and stay tuned for more, because we're really excited for where Jesus is leading us and our family. So thank you so much, and God bless.